Hey there, and before we get into this video, I actually went back to re-record this part of the audio because I think that this has to be said at the start. Number one, this is probably a fake story. Am I 100% sure on that? No, but I'm about 99.9% sure that this is completely fake. Number two, that if you ever encounter a group like this, please do yourself a favor and do not participate with them, block them, and move on. Number three, that there are many raid groups out there in Final Fantasy XIV. We have a very big community that's always been growing. Like Shadowbringers has brought in a tremendous influx of players. That there are so many groups that are nothing like this, that honestly just want to have a chill, good, fun time. And that I have very rarely encountered any of this level of toxicity. This is severely abnormal. And number four, I guess it's kind of similar to number three, is that really the community, the Final Fantasy XIV, mostly rejects notions like these. That this is not how the raiding community conducts itself. This is not how I've even noticed the pub community conducts itself. You have a few bad members, mind you, but this is not how the Final Fantasy XIV community at large acts and conducts itself. And that most players that conduct themselves in this kind of a manner are usually the ones that you are going to want to steer clear from, and most people, in my experience, do steer clear from them because no one will put up with this. And that the level of intensity, the level of scrutiny, and the level of absolutely everything else in this video is so wildly out of proportion with how most players think and feel that even if this were true, that this would be such a small portion of the community that I can really tell you or allay your fears that this is not normal. This is not going to become normal, and that our community widely rejects this kind of nonsense. Anyhow, that I just want to put at the very start before I get into it, because I know that this is going to be a long video where I'm going to dive and start talking and discussing it. But you know what? This is not how it is. This is, even if it is true, there's a reason why they're taking an astrologian with a D- rating according to them. Because they're desperate. Because no one wants to deal with it. And because there are so many other raiding groups out there that, you know what, no one needs to put up with this. Anyhow, into the video. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So in terms of today's video, we're going to be talking about something that is a little bit spicier today. Yeah, there's really no other way to put it. It's going to be a bit spicy. So, circulating all over social media was a Reddit post that was posted a few hours prior to me recording this audio, which is... I'm just going to read it out in a bit. I'm going to have to censor some of the language, obviously, but it's quite something. So the Reddit post is, my friend sent me the screenshot of a message someone got after trying to join a raid static by the user Jetlag. And this is not actually a throwaway account, which does lend some credibility, you'd imagine. But I do want to say before I start reading it that there is, in my mind at least, a pretty high chance that this is fake. Or maybe it's because I'm really hoping it's fake, but we'll discuss it after. Okay? So I'm going to actually have to try and read this, but you're going to notice some words are substituted, because you know what, I don't want that kind of language on my channel. That's not how we roll here. And so let's start off also by saying at the very bottom of this, you have seen a censored image currently on the screen right now of what was said. If you look at the bottom, it says, "Congrats, this is a throwaway account. Do not answer," as well as the Discord username is static notify. And so I'm gonna guess that if this is real, keep in mind, grain of salt, that this is going to be some kind of Discord bot that someone injected discussion dialogue into. Although, if you want me to be honest, I haven't actually come across a single static that actually uses a bot to deliver messages like this. It really makes me go, what? This is very weird behavior just off of that. But let's go through it pretending that this is real. So hello, blanked out name. Thanks for raiding with us today. We would like to officially rate you now. If we accept you, there will be certain rules in place. You will get a rating and your parse told for the 3 raids we did with you. But let's come to a personal rating first though. Some of our council had a feeling you didn't quite synergize with our general vibe. We say what we think and it will stay that way. You told your raid leader like 3 times to stop saying something something. He did not appreciate you mouthing off against him, and this will influence the general rating. Maybe you people in Germany are like that, but you just gotta adjust since we're mostly from the US, different culture, different way of speaking, deal with it. Okay. Now to your in-game performance, most of us were really surprised how fast you picked on mechanics and how someone with only 1 green parse can be a generally good player. We see lots of potential in you. Lots of things wrong with that statement, like gear, for one, really impacts a parse, but okay. Coming on to the ratings per encounter, E6S was a breeze with you. It was expected since you made it to win Rage and have proven that you didn't lie and knew the mechanics very well. I mean, can I just say one thing here? If you are assuming that someone is already lying, if you're assuming someone's already lying, what the hell? That's, like, I understand going into something with a bit of cynicism, but if you are already assuming someone is lying off the bat when you're first interacting with them, oh my gosh, what? Like, I'm just thinking about this in a job interview. You know what? If I think that someone is lying in a job interview, you don't interview them. But if you're like bringing someone in to a job interview and you're just like, oh, well, you just proved you didn't lie, I don't know, but I'm continuing. And knew the mechanics very well. You had to work on your uptime though, but this is just a matter of getting to know the fight better. Okay, that line is true. That's fair. That line, I have no issue with. We'd give you a solid C+ for E6S with lots of potential. You parsed with a 26. We will not upload this because of our policy to only upload 90 plus parses. I'm pretty sure that they probably don't have many parses up on FF logs. E7S was acceptable. You never did this fight and you only watched guides for it. Again, we gotta point out your fast learning ability and your ability to adjust. This fight will only get easier the more often we clear it. We'd give you a D+, you parsed gray, that's all I gotta say, no upload. E8S, definitely the hardest fight. You kind of felt like a burden. You only watched the guide again. Beforehand practice would have been nice. You had lots of questions about mechanics, and while we don't mind teaching, it was annoying to 2 members. Again, you adjusted quickly, but you still died a bunch. This cannot happen to have good parses. We'd give you D-. You parsed to 14. Horrible, no upload. We gotta say, you were more pleasant than the Astrologian. There's a little bit of a censor here. So the person who posted it to Reddit already did a little bit of censoring. So Astro, I mean, we can only guess what's there. And that's why you got most of the loot. We see potential, and while you still made mistakes, you learn in a really good pace. We'd like to welcome you into our static. With D- rating. Now that you are a part of us, there will be some basic rules. Sorry, this is like not even my first take of this. So now that you are a part of us, there will be some basic rules. 1, you're the new guy, so you don't have anything to say. You have to do what the raid leader says. You're generally not allowed to raid with others. Talk about a controlling relationship, okay. And while we can't check if you raided after we had our weekly clear, it will become obvious if one of the pug, uploads a log. You're allowed 1 strike, but you are kicked from the team on the second one. You know what, I really love a controlling relationship. That's complete sarcasm for the record. 4th, you are not allowed to run act. And for anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's actually how you get your numbers. This is a privilege only to the raid leader. If you want to know your DPS and parse, you have to ask. We will request unannounced screen sharing checks. You better uninstall act so you don't get tempted. I mean, assuming that this is true, everything about what I'm reading right now is severely controlling. Like, massively. Fifth of all, we only upload 90 plus parses, so that means that they're like in the literal top 10 percentile of all players. That includes players who have perfect best in slot gear, perfect materia, and have ran it multiple times, because a lot of people go back, and the only reason that they actually go back to do fights is just so that they can parse higher. So out of everyone that's cleared the fight, you need to be in the top 10 percentile is what this person's saying. We need you to reach this goal in about 3 weeks. Group has decided. If you don't, you're out. I mean, are you going to get them best in slot gear in 3 weeks? Because, I mean, in order to get 90th percentile parses, you pretty much do need best in slot gear, because you're competing with people that do have best in slot gear. So, I mean, if you actually expect to gear them out full best in slot in 3 weeks, then... But reality is, that's not... Depending on what drops, that might not even be possible. This list is not final and may be expanded in the future. Some rules might get changed or deleted according to your behavior and performance. Congrats, this is a throwaway account, do not answer. And then there's actually a second one that I did a bit of digging on that was actually linked. And then the second post is what really makes it extremely clear that it's absolutely fake. And so this was actually posted by the user Thick Juicy Brows. And so if we open this one up, we can see, hello blank. We come with tragic news and we are angry. After your raids and raiding last week, one of our members started a fight with us because he agreed with your views and our language, and that we shouldn't say words that I censored out even more than the original screenshot. So we kicked that person out. How does a not so good player like you have the audacity to speak up to players like us? We're in the top percentiles for every Shadowbringer's Savage encounter, and someone like you dares raise his voice and say his opinion. This time is truly crazy. I know this is a free country, blah blah blah. Actually, I don't even really want to read most of this. I kind of am gonna go back and actually edit out some of this, but if you want to see the original post, you can, but I don't want to bring that stuff on my channel. But skipping through that, it's like, so this is an official statement from the team that you and the astrologist are no longer welcome, and this is the last time you'll hear from us. Luckily, we didn't add either of you, blah blah blah, parsing logs. And then they said things like Samurai is garbage, and that you said you'd be a summoner, wasting coffers on one of the worst classes in the patch. Samurai is doing pretty well for the record. Since you basically exploited us for free carries, you will have to reply to this message with $100 worth of Steam gift cards. You're not allowed to raid until you have paid us. This is not extortion, this is the right thing to do, and you know it. We are watching you. So, in my opinion, I think that the second one makes it all pretty clear that this is all fake. At least that's my opinion. But let's go piece by piece, because I think just saying, oh, that's fake after reading it is such a cop-out. I think that there is some things worth kind of like looking at and extracting from this. So let's start with the first one, because I think the first one's slightly more probable. And I do actually want to explore this, because I think that a lot of people who are hearing some things about the Redditing community, especially with this post, because when I looked at it on Reddit, it had like 85% upvotes, and I'm like, what? You actually all are believing this? But for this first post, it basically, I really want to emphasize to a lot of people that this is not how raiding is. This is not how it's like. And for me, it's like I cleared Tyne Savage last one. I have been clearing this current iteration of things. I have very, very decent parses. I mean, if you look at like my patch 5.1 stuff where I actually had time and a bit of a life, you can see that I was hitting 90 plus percentile parses pretty frequently myself. So yeah, this, and for the record, I've never really held this mentality, and this mentality is, in my experience, pretty rare in the actual raiding community. You might see this in a few party finder groups with a few people who are like running experts or stuff, but generally speaking, this type of mentality doesn't usually get into any group, because you know no one wants to deal with someone like this. There might be some groups like this, but honestly they're gonna just disband probably after the third wipe on E5S, so they're not really even a static group. I mean, if I'm just being super honest. So this first one, this idea that we're gonna officially rate you now, and I think that as soon as you say something like that, as soon as you say something, you have initially started the relationship off on an uneven platform. And one thing that is very important in any form of leadership is that, you know what, as soon as you ostracize and create a giant division of we're better than you and we're going to dictate to you how you did to us, as soon as you start to breed that sort of mentality, literally from like the first interaction, you're going to get off on the wrong foot. You're going to start causing tension. The person is probably going to feel a little less attached and a little less motivated for that, because it's just like the idea that you're going to get rated. I mean, reality is, it's like if you do go to like even a job interview, you are technically being rated. They are looking to see if you're a right candidate or right fit for them. But even then, when you talk about job interview etiquette for actual jobs in the real world, it's just like you need to be a humble interviewer and you need to do the job right. There are actually interviews that I have literally walked out of in real life where I was like, no way in hell I'm taking this job, because I got started off on just the wrong foot and they went with a mentality like this. And as soon as you create that real wedge of the relationship, it's just gonna fall apart after that. There's no way that a person is going to how to say it, yeah, as soon as you started off like that, there's just this really nasty power dynamic. It's thrown right in their face and it's pretty nasty. That is followed up by, if we accept you, there will be certain rules in place. So the idea of rules is important. It's important to make sure that there are certain rules, but I literally like cried laughing almost when I read some of the rules or when I just got there. It's just ridiculous. But some rules are okay. Generally speaking, most rules include things like don't be homophobic, don't be racist, don't be transphobic, make sure to be fair to everyone. And those are things that are more than fair. You know what? These rules are just like don't discriminate and be kind to everyone. Treat everyone how you'd want to be treated. Which, I mean, as we've established from this first line, is clearly not how this group, this theoretical group that I'm pretty sure is fake, would go. And so it said you will get a rating and a parse told for the 3 raids we did with you. So just cycling back, one thing I find really strange with this is that it says E3 raids and it looks at E6, E7, E8S. And so my first question that I'm wondering is, what about E5S? I mean, if you're really gonna be ranking the difficulty, and this is just opinion, is I would say that E7S would probably honestly be the easiest mechanically, followed by probably E6S, and then E5S. I'd say E5S is probably the 3rd hardest, because you know what, if one person has a little bit of lag during chain lightning or something, or dies during pillars, the entire group's gonna wipe, period. It's very hard to recover from badly done mechanics in E5S. I'm not saying that it's super hard, I'm not saying that it's rocket science, but I am gonna say that it is definitely probably the most punishing fight. So I find that a little interesting. I just wanted to say that. And then what happens next is, like they say, let's come to a personal rating first though, and that some of the council felt that they had a feeling that they didn't quite synergize with the general vibe. And we say what we think and it will stay that way. I have come across this mentality sometimes, and you know what? It's unfortunate. It's just like, you know what? This kind of situation, I can't say this doesn't happen in particular. There are some groups where if you join them, they're going to have a very particular way of acting, talking. I've definitely been in some raid groups where there is active amounts of homophobia, and you can imagine that I kept my mouth shut. But yeah, you told our raid leader like 3 times to stop, saying blah blah blah, and they took it as mouthing off. And you know what? Generally speaking, with groups like that, they will take it as mouthing off. So this part is actually fairly believable. But one thing that I do want to say is that usually these groups, in my experience, have been very small, and they have definitely not taken off much. In fact, the one group that I was thinking about in particular, it actually crashed. It was during Storm Blood, and it was at the 3rd tier of the fight. I'm not going to specify which one because I don't want anyone pulling up anything. And yeah, it was a disaster. It was a disaster. That's all I'm gonna say. But it basically disbanded at the end, and it was just like, yeah. And then this entire notion about in-game performance, I'm just gonna summarize this entire section. The idea that a new person to a raid group could even clear. Because each raid group, one thing is like, yeah, you have general strategies posted online, but each raid group, other than E7S, I'm noticing has their own little ways to deal with mechanics. And that even in the E7S, there is decently different strategies. But to say that being able to clear with a different team is going to be a D or a C, or like really judging their parse numbers, it's alarming to say the least, and it's not something that I've seen much. And this is something that I think a lot of people newer to raiding really fear, is just like, oh, what if I don't do well and then I'm parsing gray? It's like, this mentality, in my experience, is actually very small. Outside of a few very toxic groups, this is very small mentality. Most groups are willing to work with you, and for most of them, they're just like, a clear is a clear. And do you want to know the truth? The players that I do know that are mostly worried about their parses, they don't care what your parse is as long as theirs is good. That's the honest truth. As long as they're getting 95, 96, 97, they don't give a if you're parsing gray. They want their own parse to be shiny and new and sparkly. They don't care what the entire group's parse is. They really don't. I have seen very few people care about that. As long as they're clearing, as long as their own parse is good, they don't care. Because it's on their FF logs. Their ranking number's still going up. What are they caring about? Oh, I cleared Ramu 30 seconds faster than you because my Astrologian, they hit a 90% parse, and instead of doing 4k damage, they did 6k damage. Oh yeah, that didn't change my rank, but oh yeah. No one cares. They don't care. In my experience, they don't care as long as their parse is fine. Really. So the entire notion that they'd care about that if they're clearing is bogus to me. If you're clearing content, you're clearing content. If you're striving for a parse, you're striving for a parse. And especially when we're taking into account raid DPS, which is one's own personal contributions, which is completely independent of things like Astrologian cards, Dragoon buffs, blah blah blah, you can really say that the parse is in its own little bubble. It's like, technically, your A DPS could be like 70th percentile, just because everyone flooded you with so much. But then your R DPS is in the 40th percentile, just because you didn't actually perform that well, even with everyone contributing everything into you. And so, this notion that anyone would care if like an Astrologian hit like a 14% of gray is insane to me. Their own ranking will be going up. It's bogus to me. I mean, maybe some groups really care because they want their entire group at the top, but I'm gonna even say this as someone who does browse FF logs, as my videos have shown in the past for analysis. I don't even remember the name of like the top 5 teams, and maybe that's bad. Maybe I'm gonna get cancelled for saying that, but like, if I'm looking up a fight, I mean, I'm just looking for who is number 1 and looking at their numbers. I don't actually care who is the number 1, because you know what? It always changes. It always changes. And like 2 years ago, it was very different groups that we were talking about. Completely different FCs and guilds. It wasn't the same people. And so it's just like, who's the top? I mean, respectfully, I think that's a goal that is worth achieving. And you know what? If that's what someone wants, that's great. But I think that trying to put this pressure on other people is quite a lot. I really do not see it. And now I've kind of belabored that point for 3 minutes, but really I have to say to newer raiders that are intimidated by this, this is not what I've seen. Generally speaking, this is flagrantly ridiculous behavior. And then the part that made me burst out laughing is just like, we gotta say you were more pleasant than blah blah blah, you got the loot, okay, whatever. We see potential, and while you made mistakes, blah blah blah, we'd like to welcome you into our static. Okay, So first off, and I need a sip of water for this. If your static is so busted that you're gonna accept someone into your static that you'd give a D- to, that is probably, as I suspected and said earlier, a static that is on the verge of falling apart. And if part 2 says anything, and no, we're still operating under the assumption that this is actually real. If your static is that busted that you're willing to take someone that you would rate a D-, I just can't even imagine it. It's just, I struggle to believe it. If your static is that busted, you have way bigger problems than that. Because it's just like, if your static is so good and so 90th percentile and constantly clearing, why are you taking someone that you'd give a D- to? I mean, is that stupid of a question? I don't get it. I mean, it's like, sure, we're gonna cycle back to job interviews. It's just like, I'm thinking like in the software dev world, if you have no candidates that you think will work with the team, if you have candidates who you think are going to cause behavioral issues with your team, like say I have an interview with someone and that they're being flagrantly like homophobic or something terrible, like let's say that they're hurling racial slurs or something like that. No way in hell would I hire them. No way in hell would I hire them. And let's say that I had someone who is like a D a D-. For the record, I don't think that D- is even on the grading scale. It's like D+, D, and then F. D- doesn't even exist. Maybe it does in some places, but at least where I'm from, it don't exist. I have not seen it at least. You just wouldn't hire them. You just would keep going. You'd look for more candidates. You wouldn't accept the current candidate. And yeah, that's all I can really say. Is just like, how desperate do you have to be to take someone that you've given a D- to? My god. But the next thing is like rules. So this part actually definitely I think is something that is worth noting, because I think that this is maybe a little bit more real. So it says you are the new guy, so you don't have to say. You do what the raid leader says. You're generally not allowed to raid with others. You're not allowed to run act. And these things alone, yeah, I kind of boiled it down, but these things alone, control freak. Super control freak. Super control freak. And assuming that this is real, I can see why someone would be scared off, because it's just like, okay, we're not allowed to run act, which is going to give us our numbers, and that we need to trust that the raid lead's going to be honest. The same raid lead that apparently is saying things that you disagree with, that thinks you're mouthing off against him, and all of this elitist garbage. Yeah, not happening. I mean, you can say unannounced screen sharing checks. What the hell is this? This has got to be fake. Like, I keep saying it, but if someone was saying to do all this to me, it's just like, you know what? I'm gonna say it. I have worked on FDA regulated software, and I never in my life have had a screen sharing check, and that was FDA regulated software. You wanna do unannounced screen sharing checks for ACT? I just don't even know. It's just... And then the other thing about not allowed to raid with others, you know what? There is some merit to that, I will say. It's just like, if you're a part of a static, and let's say that you're raiding near the end of the week. Like, let's say you're raiding on like Friday and Saturday. Okay, that makes sense. Why would you not clear with us on our designated time if you're gonna like clear E5 through E8 on the Tuesday on the reset? Why are you not waiting for our group? That part I get. But the idea and this all depends on scheduling. But if your raid group is scheduling for like Tuesday, Wednesday raids, like my group, we only raid for like 2 hours on Tuesday, Wednesday, and like that's at the start of the week. But I have never once been told by them that I'm not allowed to go and clear E5, E6, E7, E8 on my own if I don't want to. And I mean, because life has been so busy, I haven't really done much of that or had much of an opportunity to. But basically this entire idea that you're not allowed to raid on your own is just insane to me. It's flagrantly insane, and I have never heard of it. In fact, most groups that are progressing, if you can get one piece of gear or you can get the knowledge of a fight outside of the raid group, that's a good thing. They're gonna praise you. They're gonna be like, wow, you went into Shiva E8S and you learned the mechanics on your own? Whoa, thank you for doing that. Can you teach us some of your tricks? They're not gonna shun you for it or say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You're breaking the rules. I have never heard of that. Never, never, never. Only if you're doing the fights and clearing before your scheduled static time have I ever heard that be an issue. Which of course that's an issue because you're breaking the fact that everyone else wants to get loot too. I mean, that one's not good. But if you're doing it after, like if I say, let's finish my Tuesday, Wednesday raids with my group for 2 hours, and then I went and then I cleared like E8S on like a Thursday, I got like, say, the new weapon, my group would be like, hell yeah, now we can fight that DPS check even better. So I have never heard of this bogus level of control freakishness ever before. This is crazy to me. And then, of course, they had to say, this list is not final and may expand in the future. Some rules might get changed or deleted according to your behavior and performance. And so, honestly, if you ever see any group say anything at all, like basically any of this, don't join them. Because you know what, I have seen so many raid groups, and yeah, I've had some bad groups in the past, nothing like this though. But there's so many different raid groups out there, so many, so many, and this level of ridiculousness, because this is what this is. And if this is not fake, I would be blown away. I'm pretty sure this is fake. But if this was real, just drop this group. There's a reason why they're willing to take someone with a D- rating, because they obviously are so dysfunctional, so toxic, and so busy screaming at each other that it's just like they, how to say it, this group would never get off the ground. This group, if it was real, would be screaming at each other after E5S and being like, bro, we can't do this because we aren't all 90%. Like, I can see the toxicity just oozing out of it if it was real. And actually, now I understand why only the raid lead wants to run Act. They do realize that a screen check isn't foolproof, right? Because you can still evaluate like your logs after, right? What a joke. But basically, I see a lot of people, because this was definitely shared around Twitter, this was definitely shared around Reddit with upvotes, and a lot of people taking it serious. This is not normal. I do not see raid groups like this. This is insane. This is genuinely insane. And I actually feel really sad that some people have taken this seriously, because I think it paints such a bleak and sad picture of raiding in this game. And are there toxic members of Final Fantasy XIV? Yes. Just like any group, there will be bad actors. But in this game, I can tell you for a fact that it's so few. It's so few. The incredible majority of statics that I know that I have been in have been more busy making inappropriate 18+ jokes about particular mechanics being not on this channel, but most of them are so chill. I have been in a few groups like this, but you know what? it is by far the minority. As soon as you see toxicity like this, run away, find a different group. It is not that hard to find another group. Whereas if you take this post quite literally, you can see they're so desperate they're willing to take someone that they'd give a D- to, who, quote unquote, mouthed off to their leader. It just shows how desperate they would be. Like, if this is real, this is the level of desperation that you can expect from this kind of toxic group. Because no one wants to be with them. No one wants to deal with that. No one. It's just like, even if someone wants to rate at the, like, 90th percentile, they don't want to deal with this. Period. They don't want to deal with this. They have better stuff to do with their time, and they can take their skills to another group. No one wants to deal with this. And so, I'm not even going to look at the second one again. I know I've read through it. Let me just bring it back up here. Yeah, blah blah blah, tragic news, blah blah blah. So, this one actually is worth mentioning, because just reading through it, number one, if you're clearing on anything, no one cares what class you play. And as I have proven in some of my recordings, you can clear even on Bard. Frig, if you want a use of FF logs, you can look up the 90th percentile parses of Bard that are clearing E8S, or the ultimate tier raids if you really want it. Like, no class at this point of this game is not able to clear. But the balance is very good for that, thank goodness. But the one thing that I do want to scratch on is this $100 worth of Steam gift cards. Because you know what? I have heard of this. I have. And that owes to being mid-20s and having played MMORPGs most of my life. So, some free companies, some guilds, and it's not just Final Fantasy XIV, like in Elder Scrolls Online, I tried to play that a while back, and I was trying to join some of the guilds in Elder Scrolls Online, and other games too. I'm just focused on this example because it's the most recent one to remember. And some of them were saying that they have like a weekly tax that you need to pay. And I'm like, what? And it was something like 5k gold or like 10k gold. And you know what, me as a brand new player to that game, because honestly, sure, I'm good at 14, but if I'm starting a new game, I'm a new player in that new game, obviously. Like, me with like, I think that I had maybe like 100 gold or something, and it's saying like 5k a week in gold. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? And this wasn't just one. It, like, there were people advertising in, I think it's called Zone Chat. It's basically the equivalent to Shout across the map. And they were advertising, like, multiple different guilds were advertising for this with this tax. And I'm like, oh my good god. Like, I can't join a guild in this game. And I mean, that might sound like hyperbole, but ultimately, I quit that game without joining a guild. Like, flat out, I'm gonna say that. Like, by the time that I kept playing, it got really lonely. I just was not having a sense of community, and anyone that wanted me to join wanted to charge me gold. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And so, I want to say that this $100 worth of Steam gift cards isn't a thing, but it is. And I mean, it's just like, I can easily see, and yes, I have seen paid with real life money guilds, like in World of Warcraft, in Ion Online, Silk Road Online, I think even Conquer 2.0 back when I played that. We're reaching back like 15 years, like I was like a kid at that time. Like, yeah, there were some that really were requesting real life money, or in-game items equivalent to it. Like, if you looked at Conquer 2.0, it was like Dragon Balls. I digress, but this is out there. And I should say, in Final Fantasy XIV, I don't think I've ever seen anyone request real-life money for this stuff, but I will say that I have seen very few guilds request that you donate some gil, which is the equivalent to gold. Which, do I think that's equally insane? Yes. Do I think you should join those? No. Because, I mean, sure, if you want to say, oh, but we want to put together a big prize pool, okay. But why are you charging literally the newest of the new players, like, let's say 10k gold a week. Do you know to a newer player how much 10k gold is? It's insanely huge to them. Like, we're talking about the people farming Santasha, leveling their like level 20 gladiator, or just working through the main story quest line. Like, 10k gold to them is huge. And so you're gonna deny them the opportunity to join that for 10k gold? Are you kidding me? And 10k gold, I could make that in literally like 10 minutes. No, not even, my god, like, if I was gathering the right thing, probably like 3 minutes, if even. Like, and so I have to say, do I see this in 14 much? No. I don't think that I've encountered this in literally years. This, like, gil or real life money. I've never encountered real life money for gil fee, but I have not encountered gil fee for quite some time. And I mean, there are services, like I'm a part of a hunt link shell that announces hunts, and technically could they say, oh, well, it would really be nice if we charged a fee? Technically they could, because they're offering a service that no one else does, and they could likely monetize that. They probably could. Would I pay 100k gold per week for that? Probably could when I was really hunting. And for the record, I'm not right now. But they don't. Why? Because that's awful, and no one likes it. I mean, maybe the person profiting likes it, but as far as I know, no one likes it, because it's just like, you know what, that's your gold, you pay for it. It's like me when I'm running FC events for my FC, like when we get the FC events rolling for Evyx. I will never charge. Like, to me, that's just so ridiculous. It's just like, if you want to host an event, you provide it. If you want to do that, you're the leader, you're the one that provides it. And so, I think that I've gone off long enough on this point, but this $100 worth of Steam gift cards, have I ever seen real life money in 14? No. Have I seen much of the gil? No. But I have seen, like, maybe in all of my years playing, maybe 5 different free companies that do that. And for the record, they're not around anymore. For real, like, I haven't seen them at all. Like, their name flat out disappeared. Maybe they had a name change. Maybe they stopped advertising in Shout Chat. Like, if I'm AFK in Limbs of Lumens and seeing a Shout Chat, I haven't seen a single one say that they're gonna have a weekly or monthly fee. Like, what a ridiculous notion. Anyhow, I think that I have slammed this nonsense back and forth for way too long. Like, the recording is like over 40 minutes. I'm so sorry to anyone, but I think that this is something worth talking about and just debunking it. I mean, if I needed to give a quick summary, this is bogus. If you do encounter a group like this, leave the group. In fact, I'm going to record this and put this at the start. So, these first things to say about this article before I even get into it is, if you ever encounter a group like this, leave it. There's a reason why they're so desperate to find someone, and that's because no one's going to put up with it, especially not in a large community like Final Fantasy XIV. Number 2, most people are absolutely nothing like this. Number 3, what else is there even left to say? Most people are not like this. Maybe number 3 would be this: I'm very, very, very confident that this is fake. I haven't done enough digging into it, but I can I'm 99.9% sure if I did some digging, we would find out that this is fake. And so if you encounter anything like this, believe me, they are by far not the majority. They are definitely the minority here. And yeah, it's just like, if you do encounter them, just run away. And honestly, that static group is not worth getting into, because they're probably not going to last more than a month. Is that harsh to say? Maybe. But I don't see a static group like this with this level of intensity lasting for a month. My goodness, could you imagine if they didn't clear E8S? Anyhow, that is all for this video, and thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that this really allays people's fears. But anyhow, hope to catch you in the next video. See ya.